walls covered in paint.
Yeah.
In this area particularly.
Yes.
14 years here.
Yeah.
Council painting over the walls to preserve them in their natural brick state, trying to refine them, get them back to their original state for the Olympics, for example.
I see.
Ultimately, the artists walking to the streets and painting over them over and over.
Yeah. With your portrait paintings, who are the people? Because is it one particular person? I know I should refer to some of them. I haven't got my reference book to refer to them at the moment, but yeah, can you tell me a bit more about the people, subjects in your paintings, especially the portraits?
Yes,
because Andy Warhol did do a few paintings of Marilyn Monroe and other celebrities.
Yes, he did. He started off with Monroe, I believe, 1962, 63. And those were prior to him becoming a celebrity himself, really. He was a professional illustrator before that time, but he took on the biggest celebrity in the world, most famous woman in the world, the glamorous and brilliant Marilyn Monroe. But from there he became a very well-renowned artist that ultimately got close to all the celebrities in New York and beyond, and painted portraits of them. It began in the nightlife here in Hackney Wick, in my studio, and I had people, visitors at night. I'd look at them and want to paint them. And that's how it began.
I see. What kind of people did you include in your paintings?
Well, the people that were sat in my studio floor, intoxicated at night.
Yeah.
I was just taking it in, enjoying the moments,
Yeah.
and thinking this would be great to paint. So that's what I started to do. Started to paint the people that were regulars in our building here in Hackney Wick.
Ah, yes.
Up in the top of here, back in the days, a dozen years ago, there's parties here almost every weekend in the gallery upstairs, the art gallery.
Yes.
And it was a stimulating environment to be in. The people around, the regulars, I wanted to paint them and capture them in their brilliance.
But do you think the colours really reveal their character in your paintings?
I tried to do that, yeah. For example, A.A. Alcatraz, he's portrayed in my paintings kind of in a dark setting, the setting of the night time that I often saw him in.
Okay.
And
what colours did you use to paint him?
well, he's in a black background.
Okay.
And his skin is a mixture of blues, greys, greens, yellows. And the skin looks a bit ill, a bit sickly.
Yeah, that's completely different from your usual colours in many of your paintings. You know, the bright colours, ultramarine, blue, yellow.
But if you look at his face, he is a red and a pink.
Yeah.
He's got splashes of colour across his chest. He's got like a heart shape on his body.
Yeah. How did you decide when the painting was finished?
With that one, it was easy. I can still see there's areas of the paper that aren't covered in paint, but it just felt ready because it had the expression of the subject as I wanted it, looking kind of half dead, half alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, with all your portraits, it looks like there's a mask on top of the face.
Yeah, that's true. I'm inspired by African art and masks particularly.
I'm also interested in the painting My Gold. In the Danish it's pronounced as My Gold, M-A-I space gold. I want to ask, who is the person in the painting?
She's an old friend of mine. I haven't seen her for many years. I think 2013, the last time I saw her. but for a few years, between 2009 and 2012, she lived close by. So we were close friends and a bit more than friends, but she became a great subject of mine.
It's interesting that you just depicted her head in the middle of the painting, and there's no like flat surface and there's no like figure below it. It looks very surreal. What is the purpose of doing that?
As I was drawing and painting it, I was going to fill the whole body in, and it got to the point where I was drawing the hands and painting the hands rather, and I realised that it looked nicer with her just floating in gold space, and I felt like it'd be more weighty if I put her body into it. So if one looks closely, you may see like a white line that was drawn, I think, with oil pastel, and I was going to fill it in with like a reddy brown, similar to her hair, but I realised at that point I didn't want that. I just wanted to leave it as it was, and it is rather.
There's a text on the website page that this person, she's the world's best kisser. I don't think she's appears like that, because she looks like a clown in my view. The rosy cheeks, the red lips, reminds me of such a clown. It's like a horror image. Why did you include the text that she's the world's best kisser then?
Honestly, because to me she was the best. So I wrote that at the time, many years ago, that she was, and I've kept it on this website. Although the painting doesn't portray her as this highly kissable face, nevertheless that line stuck with me, and I wanted to tell the truth about her, that she was a great kisser, and obviously the gold represents her as the best.
When you first moved here 14 years ago, what was your first art? What kind of work did you produce?
Very first pieces were like studies of Egyptian art and paper, and as I found more space in the cluttered studio we were in, I started to produce big abstract pieces, such as like Musical Storm, which was painted out in this area here, this street over there, White Cross Lane, as it used to be. And painted outdoors, stored in the studio. Or I did some other pieces on canvas that were just purely pure abstraction, non-representational, gestural paintings.
What mediums did you use in order to create those pieces of work?
Acrylic on canvas.
Okay. When did you start using oil paints? Because I notice you've been using it in many of your art pieces.
Probably more and more, probably like 2010, and then 2011 a lot more, and ever since 2011 it's been pretty much what I've painted in. Sometimes combined acrylics with oils, but the major works I'm working on at the moment are on oil on canvas.
Your portrait paintings also look very abstract, expressionist style. Is that right?
Yeah, it's true. I've been inspired by abstract expressionism, the New York school of the 1940s and 50s. Artists like Pollock, one or two others, but particularly Pollock. I mean, Gorky too. These proto-abstract expressionist painters, the earliest ones, really inspired me. I think they've got some sort of poetic gestures in the paintings, telling us something about their gestures, and that's what I'm trying to do too in my painting.
But many of your paintings are like portraits. Jackson Pollock didn't do portrait paintings.
He did,
but not many like yours. And yours is like full of colour. His is like lines.
Well, that's true. You know, he did his drip paintings that were Portrait in a Dream is one of his works that he did. It was black on raw canvas. Very good painting with some colour too, but yeah, mine are different than that, of course. He's one of many artists I looked at that have inspired my work. Other artists include Andy Warhol, Philip Diggle, Picasso, just to mention a few.
I'm interested in the painting Ouija Fencing. The title sounds playful. What do you mean by it?
It's in reference to little Graham building fences or building a playhouse. That piece was one of the walls of my canvas playhouse that a friend and I constructed in a garden. The venue of a group show with the Homerton Arts Group. So it's one of the fences to the walls to keep reality out of the playhouse. And the other meaning is obviously to do with the act of swinging a sword like a child would, fencing out away people, fighting off demons or whatever. So it's a play on words, and that was an interesting experience, working in a garden for a night with people watching me.
You have another painting called Musical Storm. I know it's a different colour this time. Greys, white, black colours formulated in this painting. Why did you call it Musical Storm?
For more than one reason, but essentially it was a windy day and I felt like I was creating a storm on the canvas as the object was blowing around a bit. We had to tie the canvas stretcher bars to like the piping of a old building that the wall was, the canvas was placed against, to make sure the canvas wasn't moving too much in the wind. But it was luckily a sunny day as well, so it was an interesting atmosphere to paint in, with the bebop jazz music of the band I was with performing on the street, and the shoppers at the market opposite buying goods, peering in on what we were doing over that day. It made for an exciting occasion. That's why it's called Musical Storm, because there was certainly a storm brewing and I was there in the midst of it.
With reference to Ouija Fencing and Musical Storm, you mentioned that you was outside painting these paintings on canvas. How did you come to a conclusion that they are finished?
With Ouija Fencing, I'd started in the evening as one of the main acts of the performance night at the Homerton Arts Group. And again, the weather was a factor, because although it was sunny, there was heavy rain due. So towards the end of the night, as things were kind of winding down around, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night, I think I stopped painting because the rain was coming down. I had to get a cover over the picture and the hall of the playhouse. And then the next day there was some rain that had run down the canvas, I think. So I came back and I worked into the areas that weren't, I didn't feel were finished, and refined some of the areas that had been heavily rained on. And I think once I got to the point where I felt like I'd filled the canvas, it was time for me to move on to something else in the playhouse. So once I'd sort of had a break from that particular painting, I felt like I couldn't really go back again in the same spirit. So the feeling and the mood of the piece had kind of been, it was part of that night and could only be refined so much the next day. As for Musical Storm, light was fading as the evening came upon us without lighting. It was time to finish, and I looked at the piece, and it was mostly stormy in the middle of the painting, where there was lots of action. But luckily, I felt like I'd left areas that kind of bordered that storm, like a grey-blue backdrop to the cloud that was dancing or to the music, and it felt like I'd left enough space for the cloud to sort of have some breathing space, some sort of sky around it. So I felt like it was time to move on and get the large painting up the stairs to the top floor where my studio was, before it went completely black outside.
Whilst you were playing the music, as you mentioned, did it take you into like creating and finalising your conclusion for the painting?
It did, actually. With Musical Storm, the band were trying out different pieces of music and sometimes repeating them that day, and I felt like the music got better as the evening went on, actually, and then I found got into the groove of it properly. The early part of the day was kind of a lot of large action of chucking maybe buckets of paint here and there, but as the evening wore on, I kind of got really in tune with the music, and I was making these harder edge marks with with blades, with sticks, with old brushes, and I felt like I could become part of the music almost. And once the band were kind of finishing what they wanted to perform, I realised that once they stopped playing, the piece was finished as well, and the feeling I had while painting was in rhythm with the music, and once that stopped, the piece really stopped as well.
Do you think you could go further with the same pieces of work, like Musical Storm and the other one, Ouija fencing? I mean, for example, reapplying paints whilst listening to different types of music.
Reapplying paint?
Yeah.
Yes, good question. I mean, most of my works that I've defined as being musically inspired have been done with a live band. But I wonder if I took a conscious effort to make paintings strategically to definite pieces of recorded music, whether I could layer up the pieces over a longer period and make something that was definitely to do with particular pieces of music, and let a new kind of painting evolve in my over. I wonder if I could really achieve something new in my art through that conscious process of layering.